Hello, everyone. Good day. How are you faring? I hope everything is moving on well. Even if it is not as expected, just understand that all things are working out for your absolute and eventual good. I just wish to find out by asking you this question. What role are you playing currently in life? What is your present assignment? What are you working on? How are you faring in the role that you currently hold? Last night, I was contemplating on what role I am playing in this dispensation and at this time. And it took me back to places which I could not imagine that I had gone through. Some people feel stuck in life when they find themselves in challenges because they allow those challenges, allow those places where they find themselves, they allow whatever circumstances they find themselves to determine who they are, to quantify and qualify their worth. Meanwhile, it was supposed maybe to just be a walk through. They have chosen that place to be home for them. And so they feel defiled by the definition that they have allowed themselves to be labeled with based on where they find themselves. Currently, I work as an administrative assistant in my organization or in my office. It's actually a project. The roles of the administrative assistant are varied, quite varied. I welcome guests in my establishment, which makes me a receptionist. I prepare, I create documents, I type them, I file them. That gives me the role of a secretary. Yes, I manage the day-to-day running, financial running of my establishment. That makes me a cashier or some kind of a bursar. I do purchases. I go to the market. I buy what we do not have. I keep a record of them. I give them out as need be. That makes me a storekeeper. I am some kind of a housekeeper because I book travels, book accommodation. I prepare whatever we need for meetings. You understand? Meetings, whether finances, whether refreshment, minutes, and all of that. I could say that that makes me a logistics manager or a housekeeper. I mean, they come to me when this one is short here, when this one is lacking. Oh, we do not have ink. We do not have this. We do not have that. And so I just realized that even as the label of an admin assistant, I play different roles. And some of these roles, the competencies were never required when I was seeking for this job. But somehow I had developed the competencies over time based on the different places that I had been and the different roles that I had played where I was. Interestingly, my education at the undergraduate level groomed me to be a teacher. And so when I left the university, I taught kids ranging between the ages of maybe 9 to like 17 for 12 good years of my life. 7 of those years, no, 8 of those years were spent within the confines of a classroom, and 4 others as a pedagogic supervisor of schools. While I was a teacher, pardon me, of course, we had roles that we played as a teacher, which were not directly connected with pedagogy, like going to class and delivering lessons, correcting scripts, filling in report cards, and all of that. For example, I played the role of a dormitory mistress, a house, drama club mistress, debate club mistress, and of course, journalism club. And so the role of the college magazine mistress was versed on me. So I managed the college magazine for, I think, for maybe 5 years of the 6 years that I spent in the last but one secondary school where I taught. That role meant that I would lead kids in sorry, I'll give kids ideas on what to write in the college magazine. I'll collect their articles. I'll come up with a board of editors who would edit it. We type. Most of the times we did type. Of course, we get somebody to do the typesetting. I take it to printers. I bring the magazines back to school. I plan how we are going to launch the magazine to raise funds for one project or the other in school, or to sell the magazines to parents during an event, which was most likely the graduation or some kind of end of year ceremony. That was a major role which I played, and I played that role for so long. And prior to that, I did not have any experience of what a college magazine editor would do. But I came into the role because, by virtue of the fact that I was teaching English language and literature in English, and so it was assumed that I'll have some skills in editing and proofreading and all of that, which by the grace of God I had. That was a major role, and it's a role which somehow I enjoyed. When I was, well, at one point, the education secretary, who happened to be the overall boss of all the schools in that diocese where I was teaching, they needed to do a magazine for a higher institute of learning that had just come into the diocese, and they needed it during the launch of that establishment. So they needed to come together with material, any kind of material that they would come with, some kind of a handbook, a magazine, which was supposed to be given out during the launching of this institution. And they had really, really short time to come up with that. And so the education secretary had probably heard about the work that I was doing, how committed I was to the work that I was doing, because it was really commitment and not proficiency at the time. And so I was invited to the secretariat, and I was given an idea of what they had in mind. And I told him that I was going to work with it. I was going to work with their ideas, and I also give them my thoughts about their ideas. And we came to some kind of an agreement on how this magazine was supposed to be produced. But we had one major setback, and that was time. We had 3 days to put everything together, take it to the printers, and bring it back. And the education secretary asked me one question: can you deliver? I told him that he should give me a moment. When I took that moment, I called the printer, somebody with whom I had worked over some time. I asked him that if I bring this work to you on day 2, can I have it on day 3? He told me that absolutely. If it is typed, then all we need to do is to set it up, and then we run the copies. You would have it. I told him the number of copies that I needed, and he told me that it is fine. We are going to work on it. It may cost you more, but then we can pull it off. So I went back to the education secretary and I told him that information, and he told me that it is fine. If he needs extra cash, we are going to put it, because we need this thing. Now go to work. So I pulled my resources together. I brought every human resource, every mental resource that I could pull together at the time, and I went to work. Now, I don't want us um, to lose trend of what we are talking about. We are talking about how you handle roles in life, right? What role you are working on currently, and how are you faring on that particular role. I knew that I was a teacher of English language and literature, and I was doing my work. But then life was calling me into another role, and I was being lured, and I loved it, and I was giving my energy to it. So on day 1.5, if I may put it that way, I traveled overnight to where I was supposed to do this printing. All the financial resources had been given to me, and I was told to go do this work, and they want that work on day 3 in the morning because that is the day on which this occasion was. So I set out. I came to the printing press and I sat there with them. I left on day 1.5, and I got to my destination on day 2, meaning that I arrived there in the morning. All I did was I went to my parents' house, took a shower, and left the house. And as I left the house, I went and sat in that printing press in the morning. I left that printing press to go pay my ticket. I was there at 7 because I had called the guy with whom I work regularly, the technician. So I was there at 7 in the morning and he was there ready to work with me. I left that place at 4 p.m. to go pay my ticket because I was traveling back when day 2 was full, right? So this is an interesting story. So I went back to the park. No, I went to the park. The work had progressed well. I went to the park. I paid my ticket. I went home to my parents. I ate something. I refreshed and I took a nap of about 2 hours. When I got up, it was 7 o'clock and I called the printers. Is my work ready? And the owner, the proprietor of the place told me that no, your work is not ready. Rest assured, your work will be ready. You will have your work in the park at 9 p.m. You do not need to come back to the printing press. So I stayed home. I had chit chat with my parents. I rested and all of that. At 9 p.m., as I was getting to the park, because the bus ordinary will leave at about 9:30, 10 o'clock, the printer was actually offloading these magazines from his car into the bus that was headed for my destination. So I was very happy. And on top of that, the printer gave me 20,000 francs and he told me that you are formidable. You are an extremely extraordinary person for you to pull this off. In fact, I felt like hugging him because I was supposed to be the one to extend my gratitude to him. But he told me that I have helped him break his limits on how he usually works. So I was headed back to my destination. And in the morning at 4 a.m., I took a cab, I hired a cab that took me to where this event was taking place. And I packed the magazines there and went back to my house to refresh and to come back for the event that was starting in a few hours. Now, when the education secretary he got to that venue at about 7 o'clock and he saw the magazines. He called me and told me that Marie Therese, God bless you. For you to pull this off, it means that you are a committed person beyond understanding. Remember, that was not my job. That was a role that I was playing, and I was not being paid for it. I was not expecting any remuneration for it. Granted, the event passed, the education secretary was above happy. He was excited. I mean, he spoke to everybody. Everybody was like, how do you know? Oh, Marie Therese, Marie Therese, Marie Therese. When she did this, she was committed. And to be honest, I was happy with myself having broken a new record. Remember, this is something that I had done for a while, like for 3 years, 4 years. I had always gone to this particular printers to do this work. And under very, very perilous conditions, you will not believe. At sometimes, I needed to spend my own money to do this work. But I was learning in the process. This role was grooming me for a place which I am even still yet to get to. At the end of that academic year, the education secretary called me up and asked me how I would feel if I was removed from my school and brought up to the education secretariat as a pedagogic supervisor of schools. He said he feels that I have outlived my relevance in the school milieu and they need my competence in the secretariat. Of course, I was amazed. I was happy and I felt fulfilled. I was so happy, because personally, I think that my inner clock was telling me that it was time I step up. But never in my wildest imagination did I think that that would be through a role which I played simply because I accepted that it was time for me to play that role and I gave it my all. What role are you playing in life currently? And how seriously are you taking that role? Eventually, I moved to the secretariat. When I went to the secretariat as pedagogic supervisor, I had even more roles to play. I was into advocacy, I was into coaching and counseling, I was into supervision and evaluation. I had roles to play which I had never ever thought possible. And then it occurred to me that while I was in school preparing myself as a teacher, some of the roles that I have moved into, or that I moved into currently at that time, that I moved into at that time, I had actually studied them in the course of preparing myself as a teacher, but had never had the opportunity to play those roles until I got to becoming the pedagogic supervisor of schools. And so the roles that I played there were several. I had access to all the files of the teachers in the diocese. I mean, I interviewed teachers I interviewed applicants who wanted to be teachers and other workers. I sat in the board of directors meetings. I found myself in meetings and in gatherings which I had never dreamed of. So my role changed. And this particular job description with several roles was preparing me for other offices and other roles that I had to play in life. But what amused me or what shocked me the most was that given the fact that I had access to everybody's file, more than 600 and something employees, more, there were more actually. So I thought that, okay, let me check my file. Maybe there is or there was a recommendation in my file which had given the education secretary the idea that probably I was suited for the role that he was recommending for me at the time. To my greatest astonishment, when I fell on my file, what I saw as the last recommendation which was made, sorry, not recommendation, the last evaluation that was done for me at the end of that third term was heartbreaking. My principal at the time, probably was too busy or trusted his vice too much to do the evaluation for staff. So the vice principal actually did the evaluation, because even though it is a principal who signed, the vice principal is somebody with whom I had worked, and so I knew his writing, I understood his language. This is what I may paraphrase because I do not have it in mind, but this is what was written as an evaluation of Mary Therese at the end of the third term. That same third term that I was moved over to the secretariat as pedagogic supervisor of schools. I am somebody who likes, she is somebody who likes setting confusion. She likes inciting staff to be stubborn. She is somebody who works against the system, that is the work system. Now, the two last things that he said, I was not, I was not, I don't want to, I wouldn't want to go into the nitty gritty, but he said that I was pulling others away from the faith, that is, from the religious belief on which that education secretariat was built, and that I was pulling people to other doctrines or to other ways of worship. Those two things were enough for me to be dismissed. I'm serious, because apart from every other thing, there were things that they did that I mean the workspace in which I was would not tolerate. But this was I, irrespective of the of the evaluation that he did and the recommendations that he put at the end of that evaluation. I was rather promoted to an office. Why? Because of the role that I played, and not because of the report of somebody whom they did not take very seriously at the time. And it taught me a lesson. Not only did I respect the education secretary at that time more, and even today, even though he is entangled in a lot of other things which do not make sense to me, it does not concern me. My respect for the education secretary remains, because he saw me as an entire person who could play roles that could take his objectives or the objectives of his organization forward, rather than thinking that what was said about me defines my person. He saw beyond that definition and understood that I was a team player who, if rubbed on the right side, would bring forth something that would push the agenda of the whole forward, and not just his personal idiosyncrasies or his personal likes or hates. So, what role are you currently playing in life? If I have to tell you the rest of this story, I'll tell you that being a pedagogic supervisor of schools did not only increase my earning, but it boosted my morals, it boosted my self esteem, it raised my self confidence, because I felt that the efforts that I was making at the time, they were not only being recognized, they were being acknowledged and rewarded adequately. And so it gave me a whole new boost on life. It rerouted me completely. Now, because of the roles that you play in life, you become, you learn from the roles. Let me put it that way. The roles that you play in life actually are there to teach you things which are embedded in the office that you are occupying at that time. And when I talk about office, I'm not talking about a physical space. It facilitates the assignment that you have at that time. And your assignment is, of course, embedded in your purpose. So, whatever role you are handling at whatever point in time in life, do not joke with it. You need to take it seriously, because it informs your assignment. It informs your office. The roles are like tests. I don't know what I really mean when I say, I don't think I've put it well about these roles informing. No. The thing is, these roles are like tests. If you pass one, you get promoted because you have learned that role. Now, in your overarching purpose, you would understand that others do have roles that they play, because you have played those roles. Others need to be acknowledged, others need to be appreciated, others need to be adequately rewarded for the roles that they learn and they play. And of course, the different roles and the different places and the different beats and the different times in our lives, it all builds a beautiful tapestry that we call purpose. As I'm sitting here now, you may be wondering, okay, she is so sure of what her purpose is. I think I am certain of what my purpose is. And my purpose hasn't got anything to do with the financial remuneration or the money that I make. It is only part of it. I believe that my role in this life is to be an encourager. And so, whatever function, wherever I function, whatever assignment I am on at whatever point in time, whatever role I play in order to function in that office in which I am, it is all geared towards encouraging somebody to step up for themselves. And if I need to make money, I would do something which may not necessarily be my calling, but it would just be part of my calling because in the work of encouraging somebody, I need to eat, I need to wear clothes, I need to drive a car, I need to help others financially. And I need, of course, to be the answer to somebody's prayer because that is why God created me to be his outstretched arm here on earth. And that may not be very possible if you do not have money. So, whatever role you find yourself in currently, do not undermine it. Take the role seriously, but understand that in a season, the role may change. But when the role changes, it does not mean that your purpose has changed. Maybe your assignment for that season has just changed. Thank you very much. Enjoy a wonderful day. And of course, I would love to know your thoughts on what I have just shared. God bless you. Peace and all is well.